We'll see how it looks when we do videos, though.
It's true. It doesn't let me record the video, I don't think. Yeah, I don't see an option to. I can leave call, more options, full screen, change layout. Uh-oh, what happened?
What do you mean?
I messing with my settings.
What the shit?
Full screen. Oh, nope, don't want that.
I sent a reaction.
I saw that. All right, y'all ready to do this? Chris, you ready?
Yeah, I just been playing solitaire this whole time.
I know you have. All right, hey, you can't make those noises. I can hear them.
That's the point.
All right. Well, it's a good thing we're not doing audio because you can't see me anyways.
Why does it keep going? Stop doing it.
You ready?
Click it.
Good, because here we go.
This is the Always More podcast.
Hello and hello. It is November 15th, and welcome to the Always More podcast, where we believe there is always more room at the table for honest questions, meaningful conversations, and deeper understanding. Today on the pod, we are talking about natives, superpowered youths, horrible pregnancies, the Norse pagan pantheon, and so much more. But first, I am your host, Tim Lichty. I can't even see my last name. God,
wow.
It's so late. Sitting across from me is my best friend since middle school, Christopher Thomas Ford.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
And joining us from the wilderness that is Kansas, Harley Bean.
Hello.
Is it wilderness or is it just corn?
It's just it's wheat or
Wheat.
grass.
Is Kansas
Just grass.
It's grass. It's as far as the eye can see.
Wheat? It's something like that.
Grass and wheat.
Grass and wheat.
Yep.
Wheatgrass, if you may.
Yeah, actually. But I live in the hills, so.
So hilly grass or grassy hills.
Grassy hills, yes.
One could even say grassy knolls. Watch out,
They
Kennedy.
could.
Guys, welcome back.
Kennedy.
We have been gone for a while.
It's been a couple of weeks.
It's been a month.
A lot of things happened. I went on a little mini vacation, and
And as you all know, without Tim, this does not happen.
Literally.
then other life things were happening. Halloween and
I moved.
Harley moved.
Birthdays.
Yeah, just things all around.
I'm prepping to move.
Again?
Again.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Bigger space.
What? Oh, okay.
More
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we apologize for not being there for you, fellow. More. What do we call our fandom? I just thought about that.
I don't know.
I don't think we have a fandom.
All 6 of them.
Always more.
We have Shane.
Thank you, Shay.
If no one else, we do this for you.
So we do apologize. We're going to try to get back into it. What will probably happen is we'll probably record like 2 or 3 more episodes. We need to get another her out, another nerd out for sure. And then we'll probably take like a 2-month sabbatical is what I'm assuming.
I think what we should do is record like 4 or 5 like B-roll canned
you
episodes.
won't give me the time to do that. Are you kidding me?
Well, we got to figure it out. We'll just sit down one day and record all day, get as many episodes as we can.
I'm down for that.
That way, when we can't record, we just throw one of those out.
I mean, I'm not against that.
That's not a bad idea.
How would the people
We'll work
know?
on it.
How would they know?
How do they know that this isn't one of those?
They're going to know. How will they know?
They won't know.
Yeah. Guys, we're back. I'm ready to get into this. It's been a while since we've done our little segments. Are you guys ready to get into it?
Always.
All right, guys. Let's start off with our classic, our original, a little Wreck and Rev. This is a part of the show where we like to recommend and review some things that we watch. I'm going to go first. Guys, I watched a movie that came out just recently called Killers of the Flower Moon. Have you heard of it?
I've heard about it.
I have heard about it.
Have either of you seen it?
Not yet.
No.
I would love to.
Wow.
I don't know if I could because it's got a lot of, I assume, gore in it, and that will make me uncomfy.
Not as much as you would think. Like, there's some murder and stuff, of course, but like,
Yeah.
it's not like gruesome war, like blood and guts everywhere kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Not as
Well, I've watched those before.
like if you've seen Gangs of New York, this is worse, or that's worse.
Oh,
Gangs
I've
of New
never
York
seen
is
it.
worse.
Yes.
Okay. What about Django? How's it compared
Much
to
worse.
Django?
Django's much worse.
Yeah, so you're fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Killers of the Flower Moon is a film by Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese.
His name is always messing me up. Scorsese. Featuring Lily Gladstone. She did phenomenal. Leo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro. The film is based on a nonfiction book by David Gran, published in 2017 of the same name. The book investigates a series of murders that occurred in the 1920s, targeting members of the Osage Nation, a Native American tribe in Oklahoma. The Osage had become incredibly wealthy due to oil discovered on their land. As they enjoyed newfound prosperity, and a disturbing number of tribal members were killed under mysterious circumstances. The narrative unfolds as an investigative thriller revealing a web of conspiracy, corruption, and the birth of the FBI. The federal investigation led by young J. Edgar Hoover, though we don't see much of him in the movie, uncovered a sinister plot to gain control of the Osage wealth. The book and movie explores themes of greed, racism, and the exploitation of vulnerable communities during the pivotal period in American history. This movie was fantastic. It was, I think, as good as you can get from a white male creator about a Native American group.
I'll take it.
The writer of the book is also a white man, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. The movie does a very good job of showing just how bad white Americans are. They do mention the Tulsa a massacre that happened, I think, a few years prior to this. So it's really not an homage, but a just representation of just how screwed up Americans were to Native Americans and to minority groups. So it's a good reflection, because it's what's horrible is that stories like these aren't taught in schools. And so that's why I always try to support movies like this, because the more people that see it, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
So
I want to read the book really bad. But it's also Native American Heritage Month. So
Yes, it is.
Yes. Hey, happy Heritage Month.
Thanks.
good Rick.
Yeah. Chris, you
Recommendation.
got next.
All right. So mine is the Boys spin-off series, Gen V.
I
don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
loved it.
It was such a great show. So I really enjoyed The Boys. Gen V is in the same world, same universe, but it follows college kids before they become like the big superheroes that everybody wants superpowered people to be.
And it actually felt like, I mean, most of them are kind of youngish, but it really did feel like they were college-aged people. Like, you know how like some, like, you know, high school movies, you got these very like middle 30s adults playing teenagers. This actually felt
Looking
like
at you,
closer
Riverdale.
To it. It actually felt closer to it.
Yeah, they actually look like college kids. The synopsis online is that the lives of hormonal competitive superheroes as they put their physical, sexual, and moral boundaries to the test. So it's a pretty interesting show. Follows, I think her name is Marie Moreau, something like that. I can't remember right now. But follows her as the main character. Also kind of shows you different aspects of college life, just, you know, with superpowers. So like you see all the normal struggles that people have in college,
Trying to fit in
and then superpowers.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Graphics were really great. Plot line did not go where I expected it to, but it was still really good. Like, it wasn't a bad surprise. It was pretty good. The ending kind of messed me up a little bit because I was not expecting that ending at all.
The ending is totally the boys
But
ending.
it is absolutely fitting in the boys' world.
Yeah.
They brought back Homelander for a little bit. That was cool. Some of the other boys' characters.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really cool that it had, what's his name? Patrick Schwarzenegger.
Who?
Golden Boy. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger's son.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
He's old.
Schwarzenegger is? Yes.
Yeah.
No. I think his son is older.
Oh, is he?
I think he's got a younger son. It's probably the younger one.
I'm going to look him up real quick.
Yeah, the show, it's like, it's just as graphic and gory and like raunchy as The Boys.
It wasn't as raunchy as The Boys.
I'm sorry. Did you totally skip that scene where she got
He's
small
30.
and started writing on something?
Yeah, that was not nearly as bad as Hero-gasm.
Okay, that one episode like surpasses everything. But if you
Yeah,
exclude
so
that,
that was just the one episode too.
no, there was other parts of that. You even saw the guy from Hero-gasm, by the way, in like one of the cut
Yeah.
scenes.
I love that. That was hilarious. But yeah, really cool show. Check it out if you are of age. So,
Which, if you're listening to our show, I would assume you are,
we would hope you are.
because we
In
say
theory.
some have stuff.
Yeah.
Patrick Schwarzenegger is 30 years old.
Oh wow.
Well, he looked
So he's
college age.
he's not really college age.
Hey, look, I'm going back to college right now, so that is college age.
Yeah, Harley.
He's not traditional
Look,
college age.
just because we weren't like you and actually stuck to your college program and got a degree. Well, I guess you did.
He can be non-traditional, that's fine, but he's not traditional, I guess, if
I
that's the
gotta
High
case.
and mighty over here.
It's just useless.
But you're the one who was saying
Jeez.
they look like little college kids, little babies.
Nobody said anything about babies.
You basically did.
All right, fine, fair enough.
Anyone-
What's your wreck and rev, Harley?
Anyone that looks younger than us. are just-
They're all tiny infants.
You're 30, you baby.
It's a wee lad.
Yeah, what you got,
Just a
Harley?
tiny tot.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, I don't know why my font threw me off for a second. Anyways, I literally watched a movie today with Hunter, and I was just scrolling through, the stuffs, and it's called Woman in Gold. And it's essentially, the little description says, 60 years after fleeing Vienna, Maria Altman, who's played by Helen Mirren, an elderly Jewish woman, attempts to reclaim family possessions that were seized by the Nazis. Among them is a famous portrait of Maria's beloved aunt Adele. Gustav Klimt's portrait of Adele Blockbauer, I think is how you pronounce it. The first, sure. With the help of young lawyer Randy Schoenberg. I feel like there was an N in the film, but whatever. He's played by Ryan Reynolds, which I thought was cool. Maria embarks upon a lengthy legal battle to recover this painting and several others, but it will not be easy, for Austria considers them national treasures. So the reason I chose this film is because, we'll kind of get into it more a bit later, but there is a situation, a really bad situation that is going on in Israel, Palestine, etc. Anyways, and so I was watching this film, and it had flashbacks of Maria's character to when she was dealing with like Nazi Germany and like them rushing in, and like basically she had one of these officers like stationed in her house, and she like was on home. This is all based off a true story, by the way. She was like, it was like stationed in her house, and she was on house arrest. She couldn't leave. She ends up fleeing with her husband. And there's this one scene that stuck out to me the most, and it's in the modern time where she's talking to, what's the character? To Randy. And she's saying how she hates that she left. Like she starts getting that survivor's guilt kind of thing. And it started like really taking on, because I was like, this is happening right now to people. And so that was really crazy. I do think it's a good film to, it's hard to say words. I want to clarify that it is not anti-Jewish by any means. Like I'm not anti-Jewish. But
well, there's a difference between Jewish people and the state
government
of Israel.
Yes. Thank you. But I thought that this film gave me a good like reflection almost, because I obviously know of all of the things that are going on right now in Palestine. And so to have this like obviously like the fictionalized version of this historical experience, like
it's a moment of connection.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it really made my brain go boom. And I thought it's a really good film. It's really well made as well. So if you're interested in that and probably trying to pinpoint the connections yourself between what is happening today and what happened in the past, I think it's very good. So yes,
All right.
that is my recommendation. I think it's on Netflix. Not I think. It is on Netflix, and I think it's on YouTube, free with ads, of course.
So Netflix it is then.
Yeah.
Got it.
Netflix. All right. Well, that's a segment.
Woo.
Yeah.
Moving on. It is time for another one. It's a history episode, so we all decided to plug in Tim's. Well, actually.
Tell us.
It used to be a common motif in action films, but it's appearing less often these days. A stretch of seemingly solid ground in the jungle that, when trodden on, turns out to be the consistency of cold oatmeal. That's right. We're talking about sand pits. The unfortunate sufferer begins to sink into the sludge. Resisting just makes matters worse unless he or she grabs a hold of the vine. He or she vanishes without a trace, save perhaps a hat floating regretfully on the surface. It was a horrible decision. Quicksand was perhaps the most dangerous peril faced by silver screen explorers, followed by the rotting rope bridges and enormous claims that could submerge a diver.
As a 90s kid, like, I thought quicksand was a way bigger deal.
Watch out. Watch out where you're going.
That was my greatest fear was quicksand.
You're going out to the desert, keep your eyes peeled.
If you're just going down the road, make sure you don't drive over some quicksand.
You never know.
Don't play at the playground.
Piranhas, yeah.
I feel like piranhas were going to be a way bigger deal when I got older.
Piranhas actually are a way bigger deal for me because we went to Honduras when I was a real little kid, and there are piranhas there.
That's horrific.
Anyways, given how frequently quicksand fatalities and near deaths occurs in cinema, you'd think we'd hear about quicksand catastrophes in real life. However, actually, an internet search for quicksand deaths yields few results. Is quicksand and hazard? Is it as hazardous as it appears? Nope. Quicksand, or sand that acts as a liquid because it is saturated with water, can be a mucky annoyance, but it is virtually impossible to die in the way that movies show. This is due to the fact that quicksand is denser than the human body. People and animals can become entangled in it, but they are not drawn down to the bottom. Instead, they float to the top. Our legs are fairly dense, so they may sink, but the torso contains the lungs and thus buoyant enough to keep us from sinking.
Interesting.
I heard that if you just lay down flat, try to lay down on the quicksand, you can pull your legs up and just sit on top of it and then roll off.
Yeah, basically.
Ah.
I was really disappointed when I found that out. It's great to know in case I do walk into some quicksand, but that's all it takes.
Someone lied to me.
Yeah.
I think mud is probably scarier than quicksand.
Probably. Yeah. It's actually probably deadlier, yeah.
Yeah, you can really get stuck in some mud.
I mean, how do you think we have fossils?
I was just watching a thing on, I want to say it was Disney Plus, which also needs to be boycotted, by the way, but, that's a separate issue. It was a documentary. No, it wasn't Disney Plus. It was on TikTok. And then I watched something on Disney Plus because of the TikTok. But this woman does a series called Spooky Lake Month. So once a day during the month of October, she talks about spooky lakes or haunted water, haunted hydrology is what she calls it. There's
fantastic.
It's a frozen lake or something like that people will try to walk across. And if they go at the wrong time of day, it slushes just enough to kill them.
Wow.
It's awful. People die all the time just trying to walk across it.
I love bogs now because of this.
Yeah, bogs are dope.
You get mummified in a bog.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
There's that salt brine thing in the ocean where it's most of the ocean is 3% salt, but this is 50% salt. And if you go in it, you die immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It's intense.
Interesting.
Spooky Lake Month. That's another Wreck and Rev. Check that out on TikTok.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Every year.
Yeah.
You guys are always on a different side of TikTok than I am.
Get
We
mentally
should
ill.
just start sending these to Tim. I don't know why we don't. He would probably enjoy Spooky Lake Month.
I do send these to Tim. He just ignores me.
That's not true.
Wow.
Whoa, wait a second. I'm the one that likes and actually responds to the videos that you send me. You don't. You hardly ever, like every once in a while you'll say, huh, and that's it. Get out of here,
That's because
man.
I'm wasting too much time
Get outta
watching
here.
videos.
Turkey. All right, guys, let's get this show on the road. We got a whole fun segment to talk about. Guys, don't go anywhere. When we return, we're going to reveal one of the most disturbing pregnancies you've ever heard of. We'll be right back. Thank you all for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at AlwaysMorePod.
If you'd like to ask us a question for us to answer on the pod, you can email us at alwaysmorepodcast@gmail.com, or you can call us on our Always More hotline and leave a voicemail question at 254-218-4042.
You can also follow all of our social medias individually and as the Always More podcast. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and they, them, we are back.
Gentle thems.
Gentle thems?
Gentle thems.
Gentle thems. We're back with the main segment. Guys, we've been gone for a while, and instead of us trying to figure out like a big topic, I found a story that I really wanted to share with you guys. And you guys did not read it, correct?
I did not know.
No.
You are getting a blind reaction right now.
This is either going to go really great or horribly tragic. So,
Probably both at the same time.
Let's hope for both. Both gets the views.
the year is 1703. Is
That's a long time ago.
This is going to be good, I can tell.
This is a good start. Mary Toft was born in Godalming, Surrey, England. I don't know if I'm saying any of those things right.
Probably not.
She
That's
was
okay.
Godalming, Surrey.
Godalming, Surrey. She was born in the peasant class in a time when medical knowledge was limited. Superstitions were widespread, and people were easily captivated by the bizarre and inexplicable.
Back then, they used to put babies in the oven just to keep them warm. Like, not when it's on, but, like, if the baby needed to be warmed, or, like, what we would put a baby in the NICU for now, they would just put them in an oven.
You needed to preface that a little bit better.
Nope. I said it how I want it.
On the 21st of February, 1703, she received her baptism as Mary Denyer, the daughter of John and Jane Denyer. Years later, she married Joshua Toft, a journeyman clothier, in 1720, and they had 3 children, Mary, Anne, and James. As an 18th century English peasant, Toft was forced to continue laboring in the fields when she fell pregnant again in 26. That's what you did when you were pregnant back then.
You keep working.
Just keep working in the fields.
We do that nowadays, too. Janelle was working until she was like 8.5 months pregnant.
That's true. I guess you're right.
In a kitchen.
Tim and I were like, what do you mean?
What field are you talking about? During this pregnancy, she complained of excruciating difficulties, and in early August, she ejected numerous chunks of flesh.
Ew.
What?
One.
What do you mean ejected?
One as, quote, big as my arm. This might have been caused
Like-
by a growing placental defect, which would have caused the embryo to cease developing and the blood clots and meat to be expelled. Now, hold on.
Out of her vagina is
Correct.
where this
Correct.
ejected.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't like that word. Ejected.
But on the 19th of November, 1726, an article appeared in the Misty's Weekly Journal. Quote, "From Guildford comes a strange but well-attested piece of news, that a poor woman who lives at Godalming near that town was about a month past delivered by Mr. John Howard, an eminent surgeon and man midwife," which, that's interesting, I didn't know they existed, "of a creature resembling..."
That was all that existed.
That's a good point. Let me start over because this is important to catch all together. Mr. John Howard, an eminent surgeon and man midwife, of a creature resembling a rabbit, but whose heart and lungs grew without or outside its belly, about 14 days since she was delivered by the same person of a perfect rabbit. And in a few days after of 4 more, and on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the 4th and 5th and 6th instant, of 1 in each day, In all 9 they died, all in bringing into the world. The woman hath made oath that 2 months ago, being working in the fields with other women, they put up a rabbit, who running from them, they pursued it, but to no purpose. They created in her such a longing to it that she, being with child, was taken ill and miscarried. And from that time she hath not been able to avoid thinking of rabbits. People, after all, differ much in their opinion about this matter, some looking upon them as great curiosities, fit to be presented to the Royal Society, etc. Others are angry at the account, and say that if it be a fact, a veil should be drawn over it as an imperfection in human nature.
I feel like I've actually heard this before, but
She gave birth
my
to
brain-
rabbits.
Yeah.
So Toft went into labor on September 27th. Her neighbor was...
That's my anniversary.
Nice. Her neighbor was summoned, and well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Was summoned and watched as she produced many animal parts. This neighbor...
So not full rabbits, just the parts.
Correct.
Everything you would need to build a rabbit. If you were so inclined.
This is a Build-A-Rabbit, not Build-A-Bear.
Pieced together afterwards. Assembly.
Some assembly required.
And Toft, okay, sorry. This neighbor then presented the pieces to her mother and her mother-in-law, Ann Toft, who happens to be a midwife. Ann Toft delivered the flesh to John Howard, a Guildford-based man midwife with 30 years of practice. Despite his doubts, Howard went to visit Toft the next day. Ann Toft showed him more parts of the previous night's activities, but when he examined Mary, he discovered nothing. When Mary went into labor again, this time giving birth to numerous additional animal parts, Howard returned to continue his examination. According to a 9 November current source, he delivered, quote, 3 legs of a cat of a tabby color, and 1 leg of a rabbit. The entrails were like a cat's, and in them were 3 pieces of backbone of an eel. The cat's feet were allegedly sculpted in her mind from a cat she adored that lay on her bed at night. End quote. Toft appeared to become unwell again and delivered additional rabbits during the next 2 days.
I have
This
to
happened
think
on
she's just
November
like
9th?
stuffing
Yes.
these things into her and then pushing them out in public.
Yeah. November 9th's my birthday. So that's freaky.
This is getting odder and
Just
odder.
me and a couple cat legs.
Are you a cat leg? Perhaps a rabbit?
All right, so let's talk about the investigation. So by the middle of November, the British royal family was so intrigued by the story that they dispatched Saint Andre and Samuel Molyneux, sounds French, the Prince of Wales' secretary, to investigate. This is a big deal, guys. Like, is my
Yeah,
cat
she's
making
a
noises?
freak.
She is. Oh, Harley.
I mean, you're like,
She's
what
given
is this?
birth to animals, bro. That is freaky. She is a freak by definition.
They were apparently not disappointed. Upon their arrival on November 15th, they were escorted by Howard to visit Toft, who produced a rabbit's torso within hours. St. Andre's story goes into depth about his study of the rabbit. To see if it had inhaled air, he immersed a bit of its lungs in water and watched it float, which it did. St. Andre then examined Toft and found that the rabbits had been bred in her fallopian tubes.
How?
How do you do that? How do you
How?
find that out?
In
Without-
1703, how?
Genuinely.
Fascinated, the king dispatched surgeon, I don't know if I can pronounce his name, Satirist Allers to Guildford. When Allers arrived on November 20th, Toft showed no indication of pregnancy. He may have assumed the encounter was a farce, since Toft looked to hold her legs and thighs together as if to prevent anything from dropping out. So he was, sus. Convinced that the affair was a fake, he lied, assuring those involved that he trusted Toft's narrative before making excuses and returning to London with rabbit specimens. So he's trying to, throw him off the game so he can investigate more. Upon closer inspection, he allegedly discovered signs of them having been hacked with a man-made device, as well as fragments of straw and grain and their droppings. The tale caused a national sensation after being printed in the early days of newspaper, while other journals were suspicious, with the Norwich Gazette dismissing the episode as mere feminine gossip. So take that with it as you will.
You know, them feminines be gossiping.
Yeah. My girlies give birth to rabbit parts all the time. No biggie.
Rabbit stew and jugged hair vanished from the dinner table. And despite how implausible the narrative seemed, several doctors were impelled to examine Toft for themselves. Later, political writer John Hervey informed his friend Henry Fox, quote, "Every creature in town, both men and women, have been to see and feel her. The perpetual emotions, noises, and rumblings in her belly are something prodigious. All of the eminent physicians, surgeons, and man midwives in London were there day and night to watch her next production," end quote. Toft was researched by a number of distinguished physicians and surgeons, notably John Mowbray, under St. Andre's careful supervision. Mowbray postulated in The Female Physician that women may give birth to a creature called a sutterkin. Did I read that right, Chris?
Looks like it, yeah.
Yeah, sutterkin. Harley, have you heard of such things? Have you given birth to a sutterkin?
No. I think I have to.
Can't say I have
I
to.
can't say.
Sorry.
He was, I don't know where to go from here. This story is so wild. He was, hold on, I lost my place here.
A proponent.
Yeah, I lost my place, though. Here was a prominent of maternal impression that widely believed theory that what the mother dreamed or saw may impact conception and pregnancy, and he advised pregnant people that over familiarity with domestic pets could lead their children to resemble those pets.
I mean, technically.
A saint said this. Who said this?
I think that's just his last name.
James Douglas.
Douglas.
No, wait. Yeah, James Douglas. Wait, right? Am I looking at that right?
I think St. Andre is just his last name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, James needs to get a new job.
Oh, it was John Mowbray under St. Andre. That's who it was. Okay.
He also needs to get a new job. All of them, truly.
It's 1703, Harley.
No, it's 1726.
Oh, 1726, whatever.
We've gained some decades.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes, we have. To continue on, James Douglas was a well-known man midwife and one of the country's most recognized anatomists. While St. Andre was sometimes regarded a member of the court only because of his ability to speak the king's native German, St. Andre was frantic for the two to visit Toft since George's first arrival to the throne. The Whigs had become the dominant political side, and Manningham and Douglas Whig associations and medical skills might have improved his standing as both doctor and philosopher. Douglas believed a woman giving birth to rabbits was as likely as a rabbit giving birth to a human kid, but he went to visit her nonetheless, under constant supervision. Toft went into labor several times to no avail.
So
how does a woman go into labor several times with several, like, this is weeks worth?
Yeah.
And she's
of
under
labor.
constant supervision, and like people coming in, physicians coming here, watching her give birth to animal parts.
If I find out by the end of this that she's been shoving animal parts up her hoo-ha,
That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to go build a time machine and whoop her ass.
This next part is called confession.
Oh my
I
God.
knew it.
The fraud was exposed less than a week later on December 4th. Thomas Onslow, second Baron Onslow, had launched his own inquiry. You like that? Had launched his own inquiry and learned that Toft's spouse, Joshua, had been purchasing newborn bunnies for the last month. Convinced that he had sufficient proof to continue, he wrote to physician Sir Hans Sloane that the matter had, quote, almost alarmed England, and that he would soon publish his findings. The following day, Thomas Howard, a porter at the Bagnio, testified to Justice of the Peace Sir Thomas Clarges that Toft's sister-in-law, Margaret, had persuaded him to sneak a rabbit into Toft's chamber. When Mary was caught and questioned, she denied the charge, whilst Margaret claimed to Douglas that he had acquired the rabbit just for eating purposes. Just eating the rabbits, bro.
Just eating them.
All of these baby rabbits.
The smaller ones are more tender.
Scooping up the rabbits and bopping them on the head. You know, just doing what I do.
Boil them, smash them, put them in a
Stew.
You know that reference, Harley?
Nope.
I bet Hunter does.
That's a little disappointing. Yeah.
What's it from?
Lord of the Rings.
I've watched Lord of the Rings, but I don't know the references like that.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah, I'm sure Hunter knows that one.
Okay. Manningham inspected Toft and concluded that something was still in her uterine cavity. So he convinced Clarges to let her stay at the Bagnio. Bagnio? What is that word?
Clergies or Clargies?
Clarges. Did I say Clarges?
What the? No, you said Clargies, but what the heck is a Clargy?
I don't look. They're British. I don't know what half the stuff this is.
Oh, okay.
Douglas, who had already paid a visit to Toft, interrogated her 3 or 4 times, each for several hours. Manningham threatened her with a painful surgery after many days of this. And on the 7th of December, in the company of Manningham, Douglas, John Matagu, and Frederick Calvert, Toft eventually confessed. Following her miscarriage, and while her cervix allowed access, an accomplice placed the claws, body, and head of a cat into her womb. Animal bits had been put into her vagina for further parts. She made another admission on December 8th and on another on December 9th before being transferred to Tothill Fields Bridewell, accused of being a, quote, vile cheat and imposter under Edward III law. She blamed the entire affair on a variety of different individuals, from her mother-in-law to John Howard, in earlier unpublished confessions. She further said that a traveling lady instructed her on how to place the rabbits into her body, and that doing so would ensure that she would, quote, never want as long as I lived. According to...
Stick a rabbit in your pussy, you'll be rich.
Well, she wasn't rich. That's the thing. It didn't even work out.
No, it did not.
No.
And that's how you get infection.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%.
sepsis and die.
100%.
According to the British Journal, she stood at the courts of Quarter Sessions at Westminster on the 7th of January, 1727, accused with, quote, being an abominable cheat and impostor and pretending to be delivered of several monstrous births.
What a specific, accusal,
That is a very
sentencing.
specific charge.
Yeah, yes.
Is this been done before?
What's crazy is the way law works. Somebody else nowadays could also be charged with that same thing. And there's a precedent for it.
That is wild.
Margaret Toft stood firm and refused to comment further. John Howard and Toft went before the bench on January 7th, 1727, and Howard was fined 800 pounds, which is about 126,000 pounds today, which American, that's like what, 130, 140, something like that? Or is it the other way around?
I don't know. I truly don't know.
Here's the aftermath. Crowds allegedly flocked to Tothill Fields Birdwell for months in the hopes of catching a sight of the now famous Toft. She had gotten extremely unwell by this time.
Yeah, you would think so.
I wonder.
She would have had to.
And her portrait done by John Leguer while confined. She was eventually freed on April 8th, 1727.
So she was just under house arrest?
Yeah, basically.
No more animals.
Because it was unclear what accusations should... let me start that over. She was eventually freed on April 8th, 1727, because it was unclear what accusation should have been brought against her. The Tofts made no money from the affair, and Mary returned to Surrey. She gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, in February 1728, reported as 1727 Old Style, whatever that is, who was marked in the Godalming Parish Registry as her, quote, first child after her pretended rabbit breeding.
Could you imagine that being on your birth certificate? Firstborn.
Yeah, I was after
rabbits.
after all of the animal bits. I just can't fathom that she was still able to conceive another child after all
I
of
cannot
That is
fathom
remarkable.
that somebody wanted to have sex with her after that.
I mean,
that. Facts.
wrapping up here, Toft's latter life is little unknown. She resurfaced briefly in 1740 when she was in prison for receiving stolen goods.
Oh my God.
She died in 1763, and her obituary appeared among that of the aristocracy in London publications. On January 13th, 1763, she was buried at Godalming. Sources: The Curious Case of Mary Croft, which I think is supposed to be Toft, spelled Coll by S.P. Coll Hunterian, and An Extraordinary Delivery of Rabbits by Edward White. So
All I've got to say about this is gross.
Yeah, that's criminal. That is,
literally.
she's a freak. Like I meant it when I said it, and now it's solidified. That is a freaky woman.
Yeah.
Whole family, jail.
I mean, something
Electric
for everyone,
chair.
I guess.
I mean, okay, let's. Okay, look. Obviously, it's gross. Obviously, it's horrible.
Those poor rabbits.
But other than like hurting rabbits, like what is the crime?
That I had to hear about it.
Yeah.
Like I get
Defrauding the nation. I don't know.
Like I get why they had to like I understand like they released her because it's like she was hurting herself, but like sort of not really. Like she didn't like permanently injure herself, and she had like a thing going on. But like there's people that do fake things with their bodies all the time.
Well, she definitely killed some cats.
That's true. Just
Could have been what's it called? Isn't there a thing about like animal like
Brutality?
manslaughter? Yeah, like that could have been it,
That's
but I
true.
don't think that was a thing back then.
PETA was
Especially if
not
it's,
around
like-
yet.
it's just I'm just thinking about like the 1720s, and you're like, there is no like animal brutality back then, probably. I don't think. And so you're wondering like, what are these people thinking? Like, I'm surprised she wasn't burned at the stake. Like at this point, like
Yeah, like a witch.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
what is the mindset going on here? Like, are they thinking she's just a crazy woman? Are they thinking she's possessed? All the above. Like, how did she literally not get burned at the stake? Like, what is?
That was the following century. Change the 7 to an 8, and maybe she would have been crushed under
I thought
heavy
the witch
rock
trials were in the
slabs.
1600s.
Oh, that's true. Maybe it's past all that.
Oh, and then they were like, "Well, can't get her. We've already done
Mr.
that."
Bicentenary, guys. Well, guys, that was my story. I hope you at least learned something.
I don't know.
I
if
didn't.
I
I didn't
don't know if
learn
I
anything.
learned.
I
just
missed the person I was an hour ago.
That is absolutely insane. And she kept going with it. She didn't.
She thought she was
going to
get away with it. That's the thing that kills me. Like nobody was going to look into that.
Being a freak?
You know what I just realized? This is like Black Mirror, but like for the 18th century.
How so?
It's like just so bizarre, so out there, so extreme. But like this is their wild. Like a woman giving birth to rabbits. Like that is wildly sci-fi for
I'm
them.
going to be famous.
Oh man.
I just can't fathom that she was like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna love this."
Well, what I want to understand is, like, to my understanding, after you give birth, granted, it does take a while, but things contract back after a while, obviously. So, like, at what point did all this become painful again to not only take out, but to put back in?
Maybe she tricked her body into, like, thinking she was still pregnant.
Yeah,
I mean-
that's the only, like, it would have to have been like ASAP after the miscarriage that she was like, "Rabbits."
I need to record that just for your face right there.
That had to be a really fast decision.
Like,
Yes.
she like her cervix opened up so wide enough to where she could put stuff up there, and then for days, I don't know the exact timeline, but for days it was like she could. This is mind blowing to me. Like this had to be painful. Like what? Like she couldn't think she was actually going to get famous off of this after like day 3.
Yeah, because at that point, her body, as she's like putting these things up there into her womb that already rejected a fetus, is going to be like, what the fuck is this?
Right. Like how is she not
Reject.
Like, sick right now?
Yeah. Like.
And then she gave birth to a real baby later. Like that's mind blowing.
How are your fallopian tubes not fried at that point?
Wild. The human body. The body of a woman. My God.
Yeah. I
think it's just that one specific woman.
Just her.
I don't think it's all women. I think it's just her.
Couldn't be me, that's for sure. No thanks. Yeah. It needs mental health care. ASAP.
They did need that.
You
Yeah.
didn't have it back then. You just died.
Maybe she would have not done this had they been like, she's, I don't know. What could you be at that point? Postpartum, maybe?
No.
Just
Schizophrenic?
postpartum Sunny. Yeah.
So the traveler told me to do this. Is the traveler in the room with us now?
I would like to point out too, like she was born in 1703 and she lived to 1603 or 1660. My God, she lived to 60 years old. Like that's pretty impressive for an 18th century woman.
Yeah. And shoving rabbit parts inside of her.
Maybe that's what did it. That's what kept her alive.
So she was a witch.
She sucked the life out of those animals.
She was a witch.
Wow. Mary, quite contrary.
Boo.
I think on that note, we can end this wild story. Are we okay with that? Are we?
Yeah, no, I'm so
All
good
for
with
it, in
ending
fact.
I would prefer it.
All right, guys, don't go anywhere. When we return, we'll have some discussions and we'll wrap up the episode. All right, guys, we are back. We wanted to pivot. This is a pivot that we felt was necessary because of recent events. As Harley had discussed earlier in the episode, there are some tragic, horrific things happening in the world right now. And we felt like it wouldn't be honoring or giving it due justice to just kind of give it a quick side thing or do it at the early part of the episode and just give it a quick thing. We wanted to give it its own little time to talk about it, to give maybe a quick few thoughts, but ultimately give some resources and thoughts as to what we think is better, because obviously none of us are experts on Middle East relations between the state of Israel and Palestine, but obviously there's some horrible things, including genocide. And so, yeah, I don't know where to go from that other than what do you follow Sean? Is it King?
Yeah, Sean King. Yep.
It is wild to me to see how, in a good way, how people have revolted and screamed and made a huge thing about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which is 1,000% dignified and acceptable. And then we have images that you can see through people like Sean King of children being mutilated and blown to pieces, and we somehow go, oh, that's just self-defense on the state of Israel.
This doesn't concern us. Yeah.
That doesn't make any kind of logical sense in any way whatsoever.
At all.
What I think I personally wanted to say, just we talked about this before we recorded, was there is obviously a difference between, as we mentioned earlier too, the difference between Jewish people who have been a minority and who have succumbed tremendous, horrific things in their past, obviously. And there's a difference between them and then the state government of Israel, who has, over the past almost century, become the oppressors and become the guards with the keys, quite literally, over another minority group because a white nation decided to give them those keys.
An indigenous minority group at that.
Right. And so to say that, well, there's a history there, that's a whole biblical thing that you can get into. There's tons of theologians, there's tons of biblical scholars, there's tons of historians that could argue both ways. I could argue one way about it, but ultimately that's not the point. To me personally, is when there are innocent human lives on a scale this large being slaughtered, literally, it doesn't matter anymore what the cause is. You can save self-defense. This is not self-defense. This is blindly throwing rockets at a literal prison and just seeing what happens.
Yeah.
That's what
Throwing these things at hospitals, churches.
Specifically targeting hospitals, churches, refugee camps. And I've heard people say, well, the reason they're doing it is because Hamas is here, Hamas is there. That's, first of all, that's not even been proven. There's no actual proof beyond Israel just saying that's where they are. Nobody's turned in Hamas people for anything that they've done while there. They're just indiscriminately bombing places in Palestine that they just think could harbor their enemies. Their true enemies aren't actually Hamas. They're the Palestinian people, the people that live in Gaza, the people that live in the
West Bank.
West Bank, thank you. Yep. Their whole thing has been like it's a response to October 7th, the bombing that happened then, because it killed like 14,000 or 1,400 Jews. But somebody broke down the math. They recently had to take it back and say it was only 1,200 because they identified like 200 people that weren't, they were Hamas, they said. And then like 2/3 of the remaining people were soldiers, not civilians. And that cut it down to like 400. And then there are reports by survivors that the Israeli army was also killing civilians on the ground in that spot. So even out of the 400, it wasn't all Hamas that did it. And even if they did the full 1,200 or 1,400, however many they want to say it was,
it's way beyond that.
Multiple thousands, like tens of thousands of people have been killed. Most of them children. Like, the whole nation is almost 50% children. And the numbers are reflecting that in the dead and the missing and the injured. And it's all justified to them. They don't care because these aren't people to them. They've said it. They're human animals. They're not people.
Yeah.
They're able to desensitize themselves and do this kind of damage with the U.S.'s blessing, mind you. In the UN, they did a vote for a ceasefire, and every country except the U.S. and Israel voted yes. But because of the U.S.'s position in the UN, we get to veto anything that we want. So if we just don't like something that literally the entire rest of the world wants, we get what we want.
Canada was not for ceasefire as well. Pretty much the entire continent. Continent. Yes, North America, essentially.
And it's wild to me because it's like the mindset that I see a lot of conservative Americans is, one, like self-defense, or two, like, well, they're like Hamas are using like civilians as human hostages. You don't throw a rocket at a school full of children with a terrorist inside. You don't do that.
Yeah.
You send people
You send
inside.
people in.
Like if that would have been Israel's position, I still would have been for it. But at least on that end, I'd be like, okay, they're going after the people that did it. There's going to be some casualties. That's war. That's a hell of a lot better than what's going on right now. And
Yeah, this isn't even war.
no,
It's genocide.
it is mind. Yeah, yeah, and what's wild too is what sucks in all this is that there is so much, and this was my caution earlier to you guys, is that there's so much misinformation, disinformation, all the crazy stuff about all this. And what matters most to me is that innocent people are dying. That's bottom line to me. Is I don't care who's at fault in all this. A population 50% children, most of them are dying. Like that should be enough. That should be enough. Just stop.
Period.
The point is, there are ways to help. There are organizations to donate to. There are reporters to follow, to listen to. A lot of the news coming out of there is basically just social media from these reporters, because the media in the Western world isn't talking about it. And when they do, it's basically like, hey, you random Palestinian person, do you condemn Hamas? It's like, obviously, they're a terrorist group. But nobody asks if anybody condemns what the Israeli government is doing.
Yeah.
Which is way worse. Like, it's not even a question. It's way worse. They are literally committing war crimes using white phosphorus.
Yeah. Two wrongs don't equal a right. Like, that, it doesn't matter what they did. You don't bomb children. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it doesn't matter how holy of a nation you think you are. Fuck you. Like, we just don't do this. This is not what we do.
Yeah, they are committing war crimes by definition. So
It's I think about America and just the wars that we've been in and like the excuses we've used in the past for things like carpet bombing and like the napalm they used in Nam, and then
The nukes
in World War II, and then the Tokyo bombings and the Dresden bombings and all these different things. Excuses were, well, it was helping end. Like, no, it was just to try to demoralize, and literally the propaganda was the other people were animals. That is literally what the propaganda is. And if you see the propaganda coming out about Palestinians, very similar. It's a genocide.
it's basically like their defense is, well, if we don't take care of the problem now, they'll just do it back to us or do it worse. And so that's why they feel they are justified.
And it's like literally look at any history or any story in history. Like that has never helped. Like, hey, you know what? Those guys are acting up. They're being rebellious. Let's martyr half the population. Let's see if that helps. It doesn't. We lost Vietnam. We lost. You're not going to win by killing people's kids.
No. There's no humanity in it. Not a drop. And what's crazy is the same thing that's happening there is also happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Sudan. Like, it's not even an isolated incident. People just suck.
Yeah.
When it comes to treating other people like people. And these are Christian nations or God-fearing nations that are claiming they're doing this. They're the ones that are like fully conservative in their views as far as like, oh, well, you know, we're not going to do abortion because we care about life. And then they will literally bomb an entire race of people out of existence.
Or they'll get rid of abortion and then fund the bombing of children out of existence.
Yeah. So, we want to encourage everyone to, there's going to be some, I don't have any off the top of my head, but we're going to share some links in our episode notes of people to follow, people to support, places to donate, that kind of stuff. Learn, take in information. I will say, though we are saying something, we just felt like we had to because we have a voice on the internet, and so we felt like it wouldn't be wise to not say something. But it's also okay to listen more than you say and to it's okay to take in information, and you don't have to feel obligated to say something. At least for me, I'm a white male, so I try my best to not talk as much. But learn.
I think that's the part where I disagree, because at the end of the day, we are not being bombed to oblivion.
Okay.
So it is our job to educate others who, like we've kind of talked about, like just don't seem to get it.
Well, true.
And it doesn't even, like, especially I think because we have an influence, we should talk about it. Influencers should talk about it. Celebrities should talk about it. Politicians should talk about it. And it doesn't even have to be anything of like, here's the history of Palestine and Israel and Gaza and all that.
Yeah.
It can be as easy as what we're saying right now, or just something like, there's a genocide.
Yeah.
These are resources to educate yourself.
Stop bombing people.
Do better.
Yeah.
Demand a ceasefire. Call your representatives. Vote.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm happy that we have decided as a collective to speak on it. I'm sad we're waiting as long as we did, but it was because we had other things going on in our own lives. But we've all been posting about it on our private, like on our, not private, on our personal accounts, just not on the collective, always more pod account. So regardless, we've still been doing something, sharing, talking about it, spreading awareness. Because at the end of the day, if you can't do anything, if you don't have the funds to donate, if you, I don't know, somehow just can't even contact your representatives by email or phone or anything, just share something as on your Instagram story. It's that easy.
Yeah.
Just anything, I think, is really important. So.
And that's what I've been kind of resorting to, is sharing a lot of from people who are closer to that situation than I am.
Who know what they're talking about.
Right. You know, there's a lot of Jewish people that are on the let's stop bombing people side that I've been sharing. Like, there's a lot of Palestinians, of course, too, and people that are closer to that region, closer to that area, know a little bit more, and going, let's just not have violence. Like, yeah.
And I think that's definitely the best thing to do in this situation, because like you said, you don't want to overstep, of course, but if you can literally share a resource that knows what they're talking about, you literally don't even have to say anything. Just share it, repost it, send it to your friends, send it to your family, anything.
Yeah.
I think is really important. So.
Well, anything else to say on the matter?
No. I think I'm good.
We'll probably a few Instagram accounts that I know off the top of my head. There's Basan, there's Plessia, there's Motaz. These are actual, they used to be Palestinian influencers, if you will, and then they decided to turn all of their social media platforms into press accounts to show what's going on in Gaza. And I think they really show the horror of what's happening in real time. So those are some pretty good accounts to follow on Instagram and TikTok. I don't know if Motaz has a TikTok, but I think Basan and Plestia have TikToks. Yeah. And we'll, like Tim said, we're going to post stuff, other resources in our show notes, and probably even on our posts, like our social media posts.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, if there is nothing else, there is no easy way to get out of this episode now that we're here.
It was a good episode.
Yeah, it's important to talk about what we talked about. I'm not going to try to play our theme song now.
I think you'll find a good song to put in.
Yeah, I'll find something. But we do want to thank you all for listening to us and for being a part of the conversation, because that's what needs to happen, is we need to have conversations.
That's what we're about.
There doesn't always need to be arguments. There doesn't always need to be I win, you lose conversations, but there needs to be conversations, and there needs to be a dialogue. If we don't talk about these things and reveal the truths, then history will literally repeat itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we talked about it.
Me too.
That being said, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to follow us on our social media accounts, we're on Instagram, TikTok, and pretty much everything else. You can follow us individually. We'll post everything in the show notes and then probably in some stories and some posts in the coming days and weeks after this episode airs. So we just want to say thank you again for listening, for being a part of the conversation, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Free Palestine.